Hey yo, listen, the whole world has been sitting here watching Claressa Shields, an actual undefeated world champion, stand in front of cameras by herself defending a man who cannot even be bothered to show up in his own storyline. And nobody is asking the one question that actually matters. Where is Papoose? Not where is he emotionally, not where is he in the marriage, not where is he in the studio. Where is he physically, publicly, on camera, in this moment, right now? While his current partner is out here fighting 3 interviews, 2 ex-wives worth of receipts, and a full internet firing squad by herself. The man who spent a decade branding himself as the most loyal husband in hip-hop, the man who wrote entire albums about riding for his woman while she was locked up, the man whose entire cultural identity was I am the ride or die, has vanished into thin air the exact second his new woman needed him to ride. And here is the part nobody wants to say out loud: this is not new behavior. This is not out of character. This is the exact same pattern that ended his last marriage, and every single person who watched Remy Ma go through it in real time is watching Claressa go through it in slow motion right now. And the only people pretending not to see it are the ones who need Papoose's mythology to stay intact for their own reasons. Because when we get to the part later in this video where I break down the actual business structure of what he was reportedly running through ToonCore, and the way that ties directly into why he needs a famous woman with a real income more than she needs him, you are going to understand that this disappearing act is not a bug. It is the feature. It is the whole game. This is Papoose 3.0. And it is running the exact same operating system as Papoose 1.0 and 2.0. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now let me set the whole table for you because a lot of you are jumping in the middle of this, and it is important we get the full timeline down before we go anywhere else. Papoose, real name Shamil Mackey, is a Brooklyn rapper who spent the better part of 20 years being famous for 2 things: the mixtape run in the mid-2000s that made everybody think he was going to be the next big lyrical star, and being the extremely public husband of Remy Ma, better known to the world as Remy Ma. That marriage became the entire brand. Papoose was not selling records at Jay-Z numbers. Papoose was not on radio at Drake numbers. What Papoose had was the story. The man who waited for his wife through her prison sentence, who visited every week, who wrote her love letters, who put her name on every album. That was the product. And when Remy came home in 2014, that product got even stronger, because now they were the reality TV power couple. They were the love and hip-hop centerpiece. And every single interview was about how they were the model of black love in the industry. Fast forward to late 2023 and early 2024, and the whole thing detonates. Papoose reportedly punches out a Philadelphia battle rapper named Eazy The Block Captain at a Remy Ma event, and Eazy himself later confirmed on Vibe that yes, an altercation happened. Papoose then publicly claims the reason for the punch was that Eazy had been sleeping with his wife. Remy Ma's response was not a denial in the way you would expect from a woman being falsely accused. Remy's response over the following months was to systematically dismantle Papoose's entire public identity. She went on interviews and said he never had a real job. Said the ToonCore situation was a hustle where he was trying to use her 11 million Instagram followers to boost his subscription cut. Said the cheating was mutual and had been going on for years, and dropped a track called YUF King Lying that industry outlets like Yahoo confirmed was aimed straight at him and at his new relationship with Claressa Shields. Papoose filed for divorce in May of 2025, and by the end of 2024 into 2025 into now, his public relationship with 2-time Olympic gold medalist and undisputed world champion Claressa Shields had gone from a whispered rumor to a full-blown public romance with poems, love notes, and 1-year anniversary posts documented by outlets like Essence. And that is where we are standing today. Because now Claressa is out here doing interviews, and every single interviewer, from NZ Shinika in Atlanta to bigger platforms, is asking her the same question. What does Papoose actually do for a living? Is he your manager? Is he taking a cut of your fight purses? Is he living off you? And every time, Claressa is the one who has to answer. Not Papoose. Claressa. Alone. On camera. By herself. And the tension that is building underneath this entire situation is the exact same tension that eventually blew up the Remy marriage. The tension of a successful woman being asked to publicly defend the utility of a man who cannot or will not defend himself. So let's get into what we can actually see with our own eyes, because before anybody starts speculating, I want to walk through the surface evidence, the stuff that is on video, on the record, and verifiable if you go look it up yourself. Exhibit 1 is the MZ Shinika interview that has been circulating for weeks now. Claressa Shields is sitting there and the interviewer, a professional radio host in Atlanta, asks her point blank about her relationship with Papoose and specifically about the claims that he is her manager and takes a cut of her fight money. Claressa's response, on camera, is to call it 3 big lies. She says Papoose is not her manager, Papoose does not get a percentage of her fight check, and Papoose is not living with her because he needs somewhere to live. 3 specific denials. 3 specific accusations she felt she needed to publicly shut down. Now stop and think about what that means for a second. If those accusations were not out there in the culture, in a way that was reaching her ears, she would not be spending her interview time denying them. The accusations were loud enough that the champ herself, a woman with a boxing career to promote, felt she had to use her media time to fight them. And where is Papoose while all of this is happening? Not in the interview. Not on a podcast next to her. Not on his own Instagram live clarifying the record. Silent. Gone. Missing. Exhibit 2 is the actual footage from those interviews being clipped and reposted by every hip-hop gossip outlet on the internet, The Shade Room, Hollywood Unlocked staff pages, Hot 97's own coverage. This is not a fringe story. This is a mainstream hip-hop narrative that has been running for months, and the man at the center of it, the man whose reputation is being publicly litigated by his current partner, has decided that the best strategy is to say absolutely nothing. Exhibit 3 is the Remy Ma content that has been steadily rolling out across 2024 and 2025. Remy has done multiple interviews where she explicitly says Papoose was mad she never posted ToonCore links to her 11 million followers because he was getting a percentage of the subscription revenue. That is a specific business claim about a specific revenue model. That is not gossip. That is Remy telling you the exact mechanism of how the man was reportedly monetizing his access to her platform. And Exhibit 4 is the divorce filing itself, filed May 22, 2025, where Papoose is now claiming Remy cheated on him multiple times after her release from prison. So we have a man who, according to public reporting, punched another rapper, admitted the punch, filed for divorce a year and a half later, and is now in a new public relationship with a boxing champion who is the one out here doing all the talking on his behalf. Does everybody understand how strange the optics of this actually are? The man who built a 20-year career on being the loudest voice in the room about his loyalty has gone completely silent the second the loyalty conversation turned into a conversation about accountability. And I know some of the Papoose defenders are going to say he is staying quiet because it is a legal matter and the divorce court is watching everything. Fine. Let's grant that. Let's say every word out of his mouth could be used against him. That still does not explain why Claressa is being sent out to fight this fire by herself. That still does not explain why the man is not at minimum posting a statement that says, I love and support my partner and I am handling my personal legal matters privately. Nothing. Not a syllable. And oh, do I have more? Because if you thought that was the loud part, you have not heard the parts that the actual insiders have been quietly saying. And this is where the story stops being about a public spat and starts being about a pattern that people who have been in rooms with this man have been trying to warn everybody about for years. The stands are really not going to like where we are about to go, because the next 4 pieces of evidence are the ones that turn this from a messy breakup into a full case study in how one specific type of man operates inside the hip-hop industry ecosystem. Because here is what the cultural evidence is actually showing us when you line it all up. Piece 1, Remy Ma's own words on the record, in her own interviews, describing the exact business setup Papoose reportedly had going. She was not vague. She said, in her own voice, that Papoose was in between jobs when the ToonCore situation came together, that his position there was not fully solidified, that he needed her posting to her 11 million followers to make the numbers look strong enough that his cut of the subscription revenue would actually amount to real money. That is not a woman making up a random insult. That is a woman telling you the specific economic dependency structure of her marriage. And when a woman with Remy's platform sits down and tells you the mechanics of how her husband was reportedly monetizing her audience, and does it multiple times across multiple interviews with consistent details, the culture has to at least stop and ask whether that story is true. Piece 2. The fact that Claressa Shields herself, on camera, in the MZ Shinika interview, called the question about what Papoose does a great question. That is not a small detail. When your partner is being publicly asked what he does for a living and your response as the loving partner is to call the question itself great, you are telling the audience that even you understand why people are asking. You are conceding that the question is legitimate. That is a tell. That is a woman who has been asked this in private too, and who knows the answer is not as clean as the culture would like it to be. Piece 3. The MZ Shinika situation itself, and the fact that Claressa took the extra step of calling out the radio host by name for allegedly not doing her research, along with model Eva Marcel, per multiple social media posts documenting the call-out. That is a woman on defense. That is a woman who feels her partner's reputation is being intentionally attacked by people who are not fact-checking themselves. But here is the counter-argument I have to Steelman before I keep going, because I want to be fair. Some of you are going to say, look, if Claressa is defending him this hard, maybe she really does know something the internet does not. Maybe Remy really is lying. Maybe the whole "he has no job" narrative is a hit piece. And I hear that. I genuinely do. But here is the problem with that argument. 3 different women, Remy Ma, Claressa Shields on tape being asked the same question, and a professional Atlanta radio journalist who reportedly could not even find the research on what Papoose does, have all independently arrived at the same confusion about what this man's actual professional life looks like. If it was 1 woman, it is a bitter X. If it is 2 women, it is a coincidence. 3 women, from 3 completely different corners of the industry, all landing at the same question mark, is a pattern. And patterns do not lie the way people do. Piece 4. The freestyle and track evidence. Remy Ma's YUF King lying, as reported by Yahoo Entertainment, is being widely read across the culture as a direct shot at both Papoose and Claressa. That is Remy putting her side of the story in wax, which in hip-hop is the most permanent form of accusation there is. You cannot delete a verse. You cannot say a song was taken out of context the way you can with a tweet. Once it is on the track, it is in the culture forever. And Papoose, a rapper by trade, a man who used to drop a mixtape every month, has not responded on Wax. He has not responded on Instagram. He has not responded on Vlad TV. He has not responded anywhere. The rapper stopped rapping the second the beef required him to actually rap. Does that not tell you something? And I know, some of the stans are going to jump in the comments and say, he is being the bigger man, he is staying above it, he is protecting his peace. Please. This is the same man who admitted on camera that he punched another rapper unconscious over a personal grievance. This is not a man who avoids confrontation. This is a man who very carefully picks the confrontations where he thinks he can win, and who disappears from the confrontations where he cannot. And that distinction is the entire story. Because now we have to shift gears completely, because everything I have said up to this point is still the entertainment layer, still the who did what to who layer. The real story, the story that actually explains all of this, is a business story. And once we go there, everything you have been watching stops looking like a messy breakup and starts looking like a business model. Because here is where we stop talking about relationships and start talking about the actual machine. Papoose is not a mystery. Papoose is a case study. And when you understand the 3 interlocking systemic dynamics that shaped his career, you understand why this exact same pattern keeps repeating with him and why it will keep repeating until the culture decides to stop rewarding it. The first systemic angle is the economics of mid-tier hip-hop in the streaming era. Papoose came up in the mixtape economy, a world where you built buzz through free content, DJ cosigns, and street-level distribution, and you converted that buzz into an album deal that paid you in advance big enough to live on. That entire economy is dead. It has been dead since roughly 2015. In the streaming era, if you are not pulling millions of monthly listeners on Spotify, the direct music revenue from a mid-tier rap career is functionally zero. Reports from Billboard and industry publications like MBW have documented for years that the average streaming payout is somewhere between 3 and 5/10 of a cent per stream. Do the math. A rapper doing 100,000 streams a month is bringing in maybe $400 before splits with labels, distributors, features, and producers. That is not a career. That is a hobby. And what that means is that rappers at Papoose's level, artists with name recognition but not chart dominance, have to find alternate revenue streams to survive. Some become executives. Some go into podcasting. Some do features and ghostwriting. And some, allegedly, find ways to monetize their proximity to bigger names, which brings us to the second systemic angle, which is the ToonCore situation Remy Ma described. ToonCore, for those who do not know, is a music distribution and publishing platform that operates on a subscription model. It is affiliated with the broader Wind Records ecosystem. According to what Remy has said publicly in multiple interviews, the deal Papoose reportedly had with them was not a traditional salary, He was allegedly getting a percentage of the subscription revenue tied to how many people signed up through his promotional efforts. And that is a completely different economic structure than being a rapper. That is being a marketer whose compensation depends on the reach of the platforms you can promote through. And if your wife has 11 million Instagram followers and yours has significantly fewer, the incentive to pressure her into posting your affiliate link becomes enormous. That is not a moral judgment. That is just how affiliate revenue structures work. But it also explains, if Remy's account is accurate, why the marriage started to fracture the moment she refused to convert her audience into his revenue. And that leads directly into the third systemic angle, which is the most important one, the way hip-hop, as an industry and as a culture, has historically enabled and rewarded a specific type of male artist who monetizes his proximity to more successful women. This is not a Papoose-specific phenomenon. This is a decades-long pattern in the culture. There is a whole genre of male rap careers that have been sustained not by the music, but by the visibility of their romantic partners and the industry structure, from reality TV to podcast circuits to Instagram monetization, has quietly built entire revenue pipelines around this dynamic. Love and hip-hop as a franchise is essentially a monetization engine for exactly this kind of story. And what Remy is now saying publicly, and what Claressa is now being publicly asked about, is whether Papoose is running the exact same play a second time. Whether the marriage to Remy was, in part, an economic strategy that lost value when Remy's own career trajectory shifted, and whether the new relationship with Claressa is, in part, an attempt to plug into a new source of platform value now that boxing is having its biggest women's moment in decades. Nobody is saying there is no love. Nobody is saying the poems are fake. But when you look at the timing, when you look at the pattern, when you look at the way the man vanishes the moment the platform he is standing on starts asking questions, you have to at least be honest about what the systemic incentives look like. And the reason nobody in the mainstream hip-hop press wants to break this down in these terms is because the entire ecosystem of hip-hop media is financially entangled with the same podcast networks, the same reality TV producers, and the same label affiliates that benefit from these stories staying in the messy relationship frame instead of moving into the business model frame. Because messy relationship gets clicks. Business model gets lawsuits. And that is why you are hearing this breakdown here and not on the big platforms. Now think about what this means. Think about the last 2 years of coverage you have consumed about this situation. Every single outlet framed it as a love triangle, a messy divorce, a jealous ex, a younger woman. That framing is not neutral. That framing is a choice. And that choice benefits a very specific set of people whose incentives are not aligned with the truth. And here is the truth bomb, the thing I have been building to for the last 15 minutes, and I want you to sit with this, because it is the single most important thing I am going to say in this entire video. Papoose is not disappearing because he is being the bigger man. Papoose is not disappearing because he is protecting his peace. Papoose is not disappearing because divorce court is watching. Papoose is disappearing because the moment he speaks, publicly, on camera, on the record, about what he actually does for a living and how he actually generates income, the entire business model that his current relationship is built on starts to fall apart. Because if he says on tape, "I am Claressa Shields' manager," that becomes a legal document that Remy Ma's divorce attorneys can use to argue for a specific income calculation. If he says on tape, "I have a cash business," which he already reportedly said in one of his responses to Remy, that becomes an IRS-adjacent problem the moment somebody starts asking what business, what revenue, what tax filings. If he says on tape, "I am not benefiting financially from Claressa's career," and then any documentation surfaces showing that he is receiving any percentage of anything, whether from ToonCore, from a management arrangement, from studio time invoicing, from any of the mechanisms Remy has publicly described, he has just perjured himself in the court of public opinion at minimum and possibly in a court of law at maximum. The silence is not principle. The silence is strategy. And the person paying the price for that strategy is Claressa Shields, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist and one of the greatest women's boxers in the history of the sport, who is being sent out day after day, interview after interview, to fight a media battle that her partner should be fighting himself, because he cannot afford, literally, financially, legally cannot afford, to say the words on camera. That is what is actually happening here. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Every time Claressa steps in front of a microphone and gets asked, "What does Papoose do?" and Papoose is not there, you are watching a woman absorb the reputational damage of a business model that she is not the primary beneficiary of. She is the platform. She is the audience. She is the credibility. And he is the silent partner who cannot risk being on record. That is not a marriage. That is not even a partnership in the honest sense of the word. That is, allegedly, an arrangement. And the reason Remy Ma has been so scorched earth in her public statements is not because she is a bitter ex-Remy Ma, according to her own words on multiple interviews, was the previous platform. She was the previous 11 million followers. She was the previous credibility engine. And when she figured out what the arrangement actually was, and when she refused to keep feeding it, the marriage functionally ended long before the divorce papers were filed. Everything you have watched since is just the paperwork catching up to the reality. Sit with that for a second. Because that reframes every single piece of evidence we have covered tonight. The knockout of Eazy The Block Captain reframe it. That was not a jealous husband defending his marriage. That was, allegedly, a business partner defending the credibility of the platform he was still monetizing. The mixtape-a-month campaign in the year leading up to the collapse reframe it. That was not a comeback. That was, allegedly, a man trying to build his own independent revenue before his access to Remy's platform ran out. The disappearance now reframe it. That is not humility. That is, allegedly, a man who has done this exact math before and knows that the safest move for the business model is to say nothing until the smoke clears. Every single piece of the story locks into place the second you stop watching it as a soap opera and start watching it as a case study in platform economics. And that is the real reason nobody with a big platform is telling you this. Because if this framing catches on, a lot of men in this industry are going to have some very uncomfortable questions to answer. But here is the part that matters, and this is why I want everybody to leave this video feeling clear-eyed and not just angry. Claressa Shields is going to be fine. Claressa Shields does not need Papoose. Claressa Shields does not need any man. Claressa Shields is one of the most decorated fighters in the history of women's boxing, an undisputed champion across multiple weight classes, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, and a woman who has built her entire career on outworking, outthinking, and outlasting every single person who ever underestimated her. This is a woman who reportedly turned down a baddie's role because she does not need reality TV money. This is a woman who threatens to sue 50 Cent for spreading allegations, per Hot 97's reporting, because she understands the value of her own name. This is not a woman who is trapped. This is a woman who is currently choosing to defend a partner, and the moment she decides that partnership no longer serves her, she will exit it the same way she has exited every fight on her own terms, with her hand raised. And that is what makes this whole situation so different from the Remy Ma chapter. Remy Ma was in the arrangement for years before she publicly moved. Claressa Shields is a fighter by training, a strategist by profession, and a woman who has spent her entire career reading opponents faster than they can read her. She will figure this out. She may already have figured it out. The interviews we are watching may not be a woman defending her man. They may be a woman finishing the paperwork on her own terms, in her own timeline, the way she does everything else. That is the difference between a champion and a civilian. Champions do not react. Champions execute. And Remy Ma, in her own way, has also come out of this stronger. She has her music. She has her platform. She has her 11 million followers. She has her voice back. And she has publicly told the truth about a marriage that a lot of women in her position would have carried to the grave. Two women, both winning, both moving forward, both telling their side. And one man, sitting in the silence, hoping the news cycle moves on before the questions get any louder. The truth always wins the long fight. One person spent 20 years building a public identity as the most loyal man in hip-hop. The other spent 20 years learning how to hit harder than anyone in her weight class. Guess which skill set actually pays out when the lights get bright? The evidence has been telling us the answer the whole time. We just had to be willing to look at it. And this is only the start, because there are two very specific developments coming that every single person watching this video needs to be tracking. The first is the divorce proceedings themselves, which per multiple filings are still active and where Papoose has reportedly claimed a cash business and made specific allegations about Remy's own conduct. And every single one of those claims is going to have to be substantiated in some form of documentation, and the moment that documentation surfaces or fails to surface, we are going to get the clearest financial picture we have ever had of how this man's income actually works. The second is Claressa Shields' next major fight window and the media cycle that comes with it, because every single interview she does between now and then is going to bring back the exact same question about Papoose. And at some point either he shows up and answers it, or she stops being willing to answer it for him, and either outcome breaks the current stalemate wide open. And when that break happens, you do not want to be catching up. You want to be already subscribed, already in the notifications, already ready when we drop the follow-up. Because I am telling you right now, based on what I am hearing from the corners of the industry that actually talk to me, this story has at least 2 more chapters before it is done. And one of them involves a name that has not been mentioned in any of the mainstream coverage yet. That is all I am going to say for now. Hit that subscribe button, turn the notifications on, and I will see you in the next one, where we are going into the Eazy The Block Captain side of this whole timeline, because everybody has been treating him like a footnote in the Papoose story. And after the phone calls I have made this week, I am telling you right now, Eazy The Block Captain is not a footnote. Eazy The Block Captain is the receipt. And when I lay out what he has been quietly telling people in Philadelphia about the night of the knockout, about what was actually said in the room, about who was there, and about what he has been holding on to that he has not put out yet, a lot of the pieces of this puzzle that do not currently fit are going to click into place all at once. Do not miss it. This your boy. Keys against the world. We up out of here.